We're going to listen to a piece of music that has been composed by a Dutch composer, and it was a hit in 1994. It is called Home, but it has been mixed by two Dutch DJs with statements from some head of states. You'll recognize voices of Barack Obama, from Angela Merkel from Germany. You recognize the voice, hopefully, from our Prime Minister, Mark Rutte. Just listen.
Yesterday, Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 took off from Amsterdam and was shot down over Ukraine near the Russian border. Nearly 300 innocent lives were taken. Men, women, children, infants who had nothing to do with the crisis in Ukraine. Their deaths are an outrage of unspeakable proportions. We know at least one American citizen, Quinn Lucas Schansman, was killed. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family for this terrible loss.
People said the plane kind of exploded in the air.
Run past the rivers, run past all the light.
And everything rained down in bits and pieces.
Feel it crashing and burning till it all collides.
The plane itself, the people inside.
Strike a match, lit the fire, shining up the sky.
Big, huge metal pieces that are...
As it all comes down again, as it all comes down again, as it all comes down again to the south.
Isa pang kaanak sa Amsterdam ang tumawag sa Malaysia Airlines.
The sound of the wind is whispering in your head. Can you feel it coming back?
Mr. Putin,
The one that's gonna keep running till we're there.
send my children
Coming home now,
home.
coming home now. The sound of the wind is whispering in your head. Can you feel it coming back? To the one that's gonna keep running till we're there. We're coming home now, we're coming home now.
How horrible must have been the final moments of their lives. Did they lock hands with their loved ones? Did they hold their children close to their hearts? Did they look each other in the eyes one final time in a wordless goodbye? We will never know.
Hear the voices surround us, hear them screaming out.
People everywhere, they fell from the sky.
We'll be crying for mercy, we'll be crying out loud.
Blaming each other for the crash of a Malaysian airliner.
Burn the bridges in our town till the point where we drown.
Look at those people. How beautiful.
As it all comes down again, as it all comes down again, as it all comes down again to the south.
Een van de grootste vliegrampen uit de Nederlandse geschiedenis.
Sound of the wind is whispering in your head. Can you feel it coming back?
Mr. Putin,
To the one that go keep running till we're there.
send my children
Coming home now,
home.
coming home now. The sound of the wind is whispering in your head. Can you feel it coming back? To the one that go keep running till we're there. We're coming home now, we're coming home now.
Ich habe aber auch mein Beileid ausgesprochen für die vielen Betroffenen und unsere Gedanken sind bei den Niederländern.
There's family from us were in the plane, so we lost them. 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 We lost them.
Today, I want the Dutch people to know that we stand with you, shoulder to shoulder. Yesterday, Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 took off from Amsterdam. Women, innocent lives were taken.
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Schansman. My son, Quinn, had both US and Dutch citizenship. He was born in the US in November 1995, while I was working and living with my family in New York City. On the 17th of July 2014, he was 18 years old. Today, he should have been 26 years old. But he was killed, murdered by a Buk missile, fired by a Russian-backed separatist group, the Donetsk People Republic, with support from Russia, and too many others. Can you imagine what it does when your young adult son with so many dreams is suddenly taken from you? Well, you have to go on with your life. Can you imagine what it took for his sister Nerissa to resume university classes again and meet with friends? Can you imagine how hard it was for his little brother Xander, who had to go back to school starting a new year and play with his many friends? And for me to go back to work? How do you prepare for that moment? What kind of guidance do my kids and wife need? How long will they need guidance before they can handle grief by themselves? 17th of July 2014. We were in Indonesia, awaiting for him. Quinn would join us a week later because he preferred to spend some time after his exams in the Netherlands with his girlfriend first, of course. But he never arrived. The evening and night of the crash have been engraved in my memory. My daughter received push messages. My wife Katinka received a news alert from our national news agency almost at the same time. And my little son Xander was already sleeping. We realized all too fast that it was Quinn's plane that crashed in Ukraine and that the chances of survival were close to none. I spent that night with phone calls to his mother, to Malaysia Airlines, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to my father, who happened to be in the US at that time, to my family, best friends, insurance company, travel agency, and thanks to the internet and Wi-Fi, following every piece of news. Can you imagine what it takes to awake your little boy the next morning and explain that his big brother got killed in an airplane crash? Within a few days, I could read headlines like Quinn Lucas Schansman, 5 fast facts you need to know. His Facebook and Instagram pictures were all over the place. Multiple requests from US and Netherlands-based journalists for interviews. On the Saturday 19th of July, a few days after the crash, the first articles appeared already with evidence assembled from various sources that blamed the militants armed with Russian missiles. Can you imagine organizing a first ceremony with only his picture in front of us? Because we didn't know how long it would take for his body to be identified, if ever. We didn't know what to expect, and we were prepared for the worst. But finally, on August 11, after waiting 25 days, Quinn was identified, and his body was released. Can you imagine? You may remember, and you have seen it before, the impressive ceremony that our government organized, with the first 40 coffins that arrived in the Netherlands 6 days after the crash. They were transported to a military complex in Hilversum, my hometown. Quinn was coming home. Was he in the first coffin, leading the way? Or was he in the last car? I was standing there with my family at the entrance of the military complex at the corner. So I could see all 40 funeral cars turning the corner, turning my head 40 times, crying, and overwhelmed by the number of people around us. It took another 10 times, 10 formal ceremonies before all bodies arrived in Hilversum and would be available for a lengthy and difficult process of identification. I have been there all those 10 times. Can you imagine? The 16th of July 2017, MH17 families decided to put a bench in the park facing the Russian embassy in The Hague. It was the first visible protest against Russia. And the text on the bench says, "Waiting for responsibility and full clarity." And that year we started thinking about a recurring activity, the yearly 298 empty chairs protest. So in June 2018, we organized our first silent protest, again in the park next to the Russian embassy, demanding justice for MH17. 298 white chairs outside the Russian embassy against Moscow's lack of cooperation in the investigation into the downing of the passenger jet MH17. And the chairs, laid out in rows like seats in an airplane, representing the victims who died, murdered, when a Buk missile fired by pro-Russia separatist rebels from territory they held, shot down the Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur flight, killing everybody on board. Can you imagine this year we will be protesting again on the 12th of June with 298 white empty chairs laid out in rows like seats in an airplane, demanding justice for MH17. Because the Russian government is denying their involvement, their responsibility, lying, spreading disinformation, and sharing conflicting theories on what happened. Can you imagine what it does to me, to all next of kin, to families and to friends? Mrs. Dunham met members from the National Air Disaster Foundation. Thank you for listening to me and giving me the opportunity to tell this sad story of losing a son in the air crash and hoping to learn one day what happened and why this happened. Thank you.